1. Please be aware the following story contains some messed up animal mutilation. Like, seriously, it's frickin' freaky. My family has some property that backs up to Carson National Forest in New Mexico. It's been in the family for years, and my sister and I both spent our summers up there. It's gorgeous. Well, it is for people who lived out in far west Texas. Nice and green, cool mountain air in the summer. It was always a relief to get up there and away from the dusty ranch. My dad was ex-military, and having 2 daughters, let's just say we did lots of outdoor stuff. He taught us survival skills and how to defend ourselves. We hunted and fished and did lots of camping and hiking. To us it was always a fun time, but I guess he felt the need to pass on his skills to us. We spent several weeks in the summer up there hiking with him and exploring the old cabins, mining communities, and checking the big ditch project that was built for Red River back in the late 1800s. I think that's the correct date for that project, but I'm not sure. Anyways, it's a great place to hike with some beautiful high mountain lakes, streams, lots of wildlife, etc. This happened when I was in college, and my younger sister was still in high school. My dad was still at home having to work, and would come up every few weeks to spend time with us. We were up there with our mom, and she mainly spent time in town or around the property painting. We spent our time on the jeep trails or hiking and sleeping. It was late June, maybe early July, I think, and we had decided we were going to hike up to Lost Lake. It's one of my favorite lakes up there because if you look at it from a certain angle, it looks like a heart. We set off in the morning and were prepared. We both had a small pack, our water, some snacks, and we both had a small hammock we planned to set up once we got to the lake so we could just enjoy the area for a while. I will admit to being an outdoor type, and swear when it's quiet enough you can hear the trees talk. We also both always carried a knife when we hiked. My dad always insisted we have something, just in case an accident happened, or we just needed it. The hike was going good, since the summer cabin is pretty far up the valley. We just set out on foot to the trailhead. To get to Lost Lake, you take another trail that goes up to Middle Fork Lake. Then you break off that trail for Lost Lake. We run into a few other hikers, but they're going to Middle Fork Lake, and we were pleased because it looked like we could possibly have Lost Lake all to ourselves. It's a pretty good hike with some long switchbacks at the end, but totally worth it because the lake is just beautiful and a very pretty emerald green in color. We got there and saw that we did have the lake to ourselves. We hiked around the lake and decided to hike back a bit to find a good spot to set up our hammocks. We walked into the tree line, and first thing my sister said was, "Do you smell that?" And yep, I did. It was a dead animal with the strong scent of blood. We had both done lots of hunting and knew that smell. And that's when I saw it. It was a deer carcass, but what was around it was what disgusted me. Placed around the deer carcass in the circle were its organs, entrails, etc. But it wasn't like it was being cleaned. It's like they were placed in a certain arrangement, with little piles of rocks in between everything. Now I know how some people get disgusting with their kills, and I have had some guys try to gross me out, but I don't fall for crap like that. But this made me uneasy. It wasn't just being cleaned, it was like it was set up in a certain meaning, or it had meaning. I stepped back from this weird circle, and then my sister starts to say my name but stops. Because then we see the guy who had done this, and he looks like he just climbed out from the inside of the deer, because he is covered in blood, and doesn't have much clothing on. At first I thought he didn't have anything on, but honestly I didn't try to check him out that much. He was standing back away from his gruesome little circle, just standing close to a group of trees that were pretty close together. He was maybe 20 feet from us. I think he was maybe trying to hide. Not for sure, but my dad had always taught us that if we ever found ourselves in a situation we didn't feel in control of, to do everything in our power to try to take control of the situation. Do something that is going to take the other person by surprise. Don't do what they expect you to do. So this was raging through my brain, and I also could tell my sister was about to freak the heck out. So I stepped up and said, "Hey, pretty good kill you got there. Did you use a bow?" The guy just stood there, his eyes all crazy wide, like he was stoked out of his brain on planet Pluto. So I'm thinking, great. We ran into a guy getting his hunt on, and he had lost it and was getting blood crazy with his deer. He was staring me down, and I was staring right back, and my sister was getting ready to run. I still don't know what came over me, but I then put my hand on my knife that I kept on my waist, just to show him that I wasn't completely helpless. I don't know why I did it, but something told me to let him know that I wasn't going to back down or be afraid. I kept eye contact with him, and I would guess he was maybe in his early 30s. But I am bad at guessing people's ages. He was pretty dirty, though. You could tell that even with all the blood he had everywhere. I start to back off, and my sister had moved behind me. So I spoke again and said, "So you have a great hunting day." Again, Crazy didn't say anything. He just stood there like he was a statue or something. Or like he thought I couldn't see him if he didn't move or make any sound. We moved back to the lakeside again and book it around the lake. My sister stayed up front and she was shaking pretty bad. I was mainly pissed off at first because if he wanted to get all crazy in the woods with his deer, then he should have gone further back up in the forest. We get back to the trailhead and stopped to get our bearing and looked at each other. I was scanning the forest line to make sure we weren't being followed. And my sister was just in shock. We started down the trail pretty fast, and I was hoping I could keep my sister together until we at least reached the Middle Fork Lake Trail, or that we would even run into some more hikers. But the odds weren't good on this particular trail because you have to get an early start on the Lost Lake Trail, and by now it was late morning, or noon. We were making good time, and hadn't discussed what we saw. Just started hiking back down. I started to get that feeling when you just know you aren't alone. I kept checking, but I didn't see anything, or even hear anything at first. My sister refused to look back, and just kept going, but I felt I had to keep checking to make sure the idiot wasn't following us. That's when the first stuff came flying at us. It was some small pebbles, but it really pissed me off, because it was obvious someone was throwing them at us, and it could have only been him. My sister was almost running at this point. But I am a mouthy smart aleck. I blame the Texas upbringing, and darn it, this was my forest. I had grown up here, and these were my lakes, my trails, and I wasn't about to let some crazy dude ruin it for me. I started yelling back that he needed to go back to his deer and leave us alone. At this point, my sister is telling me to shut up and just come on. And I am thinking, no way, this guy is just trying to scare us. The pebbles stopped, and then we started hearing barking and growling noises. My sister said, "Now he is growling at us?" And I just told her to get on down the trail and ignore it. He was behind us pretty much the whole way, growling and making these barking noises every once in a while. But I never caught a glimpse of him. Once we got close to where the trail joined with the Middle Fork Trail, he seemed to back off. I never caught sight of him behind us, but I could hear him and I just knew he was there. We started down the rest of the trail. My sister refused to stop or look behind her, so I kept checking every so often. Didn't see anything or hear anything. We started to discuss what had happened, and she felt like he was very sinister and felt like we had been in a dangerous situation. I felt like he was just getting his kicks out of scaring two girls. I mean, he had to have heard us coming around the lake. We weren't being quiet, it was the opposite direction. There are black bears up there, and we would always be pretty loud while hiking, hoping to scare off any bear in the area, so we wouldn't come up on one. To this day, she still thinks he was sinister, and I think he was just trying to scare two girls. and was getting his kicks out of it. We told our parents, and my dad didn't like what he heard. He did teach us some more up-close defense skills after that day, and forbid us from ever hiking alone or just the two of us again. We didn't hike up that trail for several years with anyone. It freaked my sister out, and I just didn't like remembering a time I was scared in the forest that I considered my own. I didn't know it at the time, but after we had gotten back to the house and told my mom, she had called some neighbors and a few of the men hiked up there the next day to check things out. They did find the deer carcass and some empty hiking packs like what day hikers use, but they were empty. They also found a rustic campsite further back in the woods that had been cleared out as well. 2. Scene. I got out of school early when I was a senior because credit-wise, I needed only 4 classes to graduate. Because I was also poor, I'd ride the city bus home. The school was in the area that wasn't quite the ghetto, but one step up from it. To top it off, I had to transfer downtown, near a lot of drugged and homeless people. Part 1. After school, I was sitting at the stop waiting for the bus to get there. I had 15 minutes yet, and a guy came and sat on the bench next to me. He was within 5 years older than me, not much taller, and he was in a baggy shirt, baggy jeans, and token red all on his person. Dude was in a gang. Gangster started talking to me, basically telling me his life story. How much of it was true, I don't know. However, I listened with rapt attention because I like to write, and this was information I could use later down the road. He talked about gang initiation, stuff he had to do, why he did it, and how his brother got in as well. He was very jerky and hyper, clearly on something, some upper of some sort. It took a while for me to notice this, and then he started asking about me. I don't like being asked questions about myself, especially from strangers. And after telling me about the people he's had to mess up, lie or not, like hell was this guy getting any information. Shortly before the bus came up, he said he had to go meet his dealer and ran off. Part 2. Months later, I was at my transfer stop waiting yet again for the bus. This was a lot more crowded, since it was also in a business district. I was sitting on the bench and this man sat across from me. He was tall and very thin, his face bony, but not in a concentration camp survivor way. He was just bony. Despite his sooted look, he didn't look clean. I don't know how to describe it, since his hair was short and he didn't have any obvious dirt on him, but something just wasn't up to office dress code. His suit, I'll add, was cheap. He starts chatting me up and hits on me. This dude had to be anywhere from 40s on up. And he thought I was in middle school or early high school. I look young for my age. When he'd talk, he'd sometimes touch me, not sexually, but more than you would a stranger. My arm, my shoulder, my knee, etc. He sat way too close and didn't smell good, like the cheapest cigarettes mixed with stale bread. I was getting creeped out more and more, when down plops the gangster, who I hadn't seen since the previous meeting. He was dressed in much the same way, and was acting a bit more in control. Judging from my limited interaction with drugged-up people, the first time he was probably dope-sick, and he'd had his fix this time. Still acted weird and talked way too fast, though. He chatted my ear off yet again, interrupting Skeletor and paying him no mind. When the bus got there, both Skeletor and Gangster got on with me, and Gangster sat right next to me even though there were empty seats. He kept up a running commentary the entire time. Honestly, this wasn't about his life stories as far as I could tell, but just random shit. I tried to politely show that I didn't want to talk, open my book and read, but he didn't notice. At my stop, he got off with me. I was thinking I was about to get mugged for drug money. Joke's on him because I had no money. Before I could run away, he asks me when the next bus will come, but going back towards where he came from. I said it would be about 15 minutes. Actually, I had no idea. I just wanted to get away. Then he asked me if I lived close by. Oh God, was he going to invite himself over or something? Rob me and my parents blind? I waved in a random direction and said, "That's my dad's truck." It wasn't. It wasn't even my house. He said, "Good. Good. You gotta watch out for creeps. That guy you was talking to at the stop, he ain't looking at you in a good way." I just sort of nodded, a little speechless at this point. He then went, "Good. You take care. Stay in school and don't be like me. I gotta get back to my homeboy. I was supposed to meet him at that stop. Good night." Then he jogged across the street to the other bus stop. 3. It's about 8 p.m. and I'm relaxing in my room, enjoying how still the house is, because no one is home besides me. It's dark out this time of year, and the only light in my room is from my computer screen and the moon. My window is open, and the temperature is really nice. The only sound I hear outside is insects. I start playing video games and put my headphones on, because I don't have good speakers. I'm playing for about 10 minutes when I see light come into my room like someone opened my door. I turn around and see a man standing in my doorway. He's acting like he came into the wrong room and shuts my door again quickly. I don't think anything suspicious right away, because one of my roommates, Greg, has the room directly across from mine. I figure one of his friends came home with him and just got the wrong room by mistake. I look at the clock and realize neither of them should be home for at least an hour. Greg is out for a religious thing, and my other roommate, Caleb, is at work delivering pizzas. So I start freaking out. I'm not sure if I should go investigate or call the police. Maybe I am wrong about what time Greg is supposed to get home. I decide to go out and investigate. I slowly walk to the top of the stairs and lean over to look down into my living room, trying to keep out of sight. This man is downstairs, trying to take Caleb's laptop, which is on our coffee table. I'm not sure why, but my fear at that moment turns into anger. I'm furious enough that I want to run downstairs and fight this guy. Although my mind is yelling at me, "He could be armed, you could die." At that moment I hear him kinda loudly whisper, "Don't try to come down here or I'll kill you." This threat brings my fear back, but also elevates my anger. I'm paralyzed for what seems like forever, but is really just a few seconds. I'm a nerdy white dude with no training, so what I can only describe as instinct and adrenaline kick in. It's kinda dark, but with some light coming in from the kitchen, I can see well enough. He has nothing in his hands except Caleb's laptop. I then look at his waistband for anything like a weapon, and don't see anything. In fact, his pants are almost falling off him. I know I can get down the stairs in a few seconds, and since he was busy with the laptop, I rush him. I run down the stairs full speed yelling, "Get the fuck out of my house!" And he bolts for the front door. When he tries to open it, he pulls on it in a panic, but it's deadbolted. He pulls on it so hard, it bends the latch. At this point, I'm maybe 3 feet from him. He manages to get the door unlocked before I get to him, and he runs out into the night. I'm still intent on chasing him, but as I get to my front steps, my rational mind kicks in and tells me, "Don't do it, he's gone. Call the cops." So I look through the house to make sure no one else is there. I first go into Caleb's basement room, and on my way back up, I see everything sitting on the kitchen sink is knocked over. You should know at this point that the lock on the window above the sink is broken, and that's how he got in. We'd been telling our landlord for weeks that it needed to be fixed, and they had done nothing about it. The window above the sink is only about 1 foot tall and 2 feet wide, and about 5 feet off the ground, so he must have struggled to get in. I don't see anyone, so I finally call the cops. It only takes them about 10 minutes to get there, but by the time they do, I'm shaking uncontrollably. I don't know if it's just from coming down off the adrenaline or mild shock, but I can't stop shaking. The cops seem legitimately concerned about me, asking if I am injured or anything. They are worried about my safety first before anything else. After making sure I'm okay, they scan the house too. No one is there. All he got away with was Caleb's laptop, but didn't even get the charging cable because he tried to rip it from the wall when I rushed him. The cops are here for about an hour asking questions, and Greg gets home during all of this. They ask him some questions too before leaving. The landlord, when we tell him about this, is really cool about it. He promptly fixed our window, reimbursed Caleb for his laptop, and mostly just felt bad they didn't fix the window in time to prevent this. It's been 8 years since then, and nothing like that has happened to me again, even though part of me wants it to, because I miss the adrenaline rush. So, guy who broke into my house, I'd almost like to meet you again, but let's not. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 226. Big thanks to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, let's see, you guys will get this on Monday, the 20... No, you'll get this on Monday the 3rd. Right. I'm currently recording this very early Saturday morning, 24th of June, and kind of looking forward to having my week off. By the time you hear this, I'll actually be just getting ready to record for my first new video in over a week. And hopefully I'll be nice and rested and full of pizza and snacks and very yummy things for my week off. Okay, with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.